Welcome to Pratidwani, where we try to humanize science. I'm your host, GV Pawan Kumar. It is my pleasure and delight to welcome a guest on this particular episode, Anisa Chaurudwala. Anisa is my colleague at the Indian Institute of Science Education and Research at Pune. She is at the Department of Mathematics and she is a faculty member there. And Anisa works on very interesting problems in mathematics, including spectral analysis, spectral shape optimization, spectral generation, and partial differential equations, elliptical partial differential equations. And she also has very interesting multifaceted personality, which I am looking forward to also kind of learn more from her. Welcome to Pratidwani, Anisa.
Thank you, Pavan. Thank you for making a part of your this podcast called Pratidhwani. I'm delighted to be here. Yeah.
So, Anisa, tell us how you really developed interest in mathematics. What is the kind of background story of how you became interested in academic aspects of let's say maths or science and various different things?
So honestly speaking, I mean, even till the moment when I entered uh, PhD program, I had no idea, not much idea about what research in mathematics means. Okay, but all I knew is I like mathematics, and see, in my school, there was this. My father always used to bring many books at home, and our if I mean those who used to visit our home, they would say that we have more books than furniture in our house. So there were always, and it was not just mathematics books. He would pick up some books from the roadside, whatever that interest used to interest him. He will just get it, and he would not let us put it in a cupboard or in an almirah or something like that. They were just lying around, and he will be very angry if they are hidden. He just wanted them to scattered all over the house so that whoever gets interested, they can just pick it up and read. So one series of books that he always used to get was called Ganit Gammat. So this was like fun with maths. It was a Gujarati book, and it was a series of books that he used to get, but that was not the kind of mathematics that we do now. It was more like some riddles, how you ask questions, and based on the answers the other person gives, you solve the puzzle. Or you, for example, like you must have heard this, I asked you to guess a number, and then I ask you to do something with that number, and whatever the final output you tell me, then based on this I will tell you what the first number that you had guessed. So there were many such problems, not necessarily of similar nature but of different flavor. So that was something that I, now when I think back, I think might have gotten me interested in it. But other than that, our teachers in schools, in mathematics and science particularly, they were very good. I mean, they were very sincere, and they were very meticulous about explaining everything and writing things properly. I mean, they would not let you not be precise. It was like this. So the I would give the credit to my teachers, and I liked all. I mean, all the other teachers, even history, geography, they were all very sincere. But the thing is, even when I went to college, etc., one has to leave out. I mean, unfortunately, our Indian system is such that you have to skip, you have to choose, you have to narrow down. So I had to leave many subjects which I was still interested in, but I knew for sure that mathematics is not one of them. So
Nice.
that's how I arrived.
So, where were you born?
In
Which?
Bombay. I was born in Mumbai. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah,
nice, very
yes,
nice.
yeah.
So, in terms of the impression what you've already
Hmm,
got
hmm,
from your household, especially from your father, where
hmm,
he is
hmm,
already, encouraging you people to
hmm,
read,
hmm,
and this is something which is very important and unusual, also, right? Because a lot of times you would see that, especially nowadays, the number of books
hmm.
which children read has
Right,
gone down drastically.
that's true. Hmm,
Whereas at a stage when we were all growing up,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
books were something very
That's
important
right.
and also not expensive,
True,
right?
true,
That is an
true, true.
important point.
I remember I used to buy very good books in 10 rupees, 20 rupees from the roadsides in Matunga. There are so many outside this Mysore cafe in King Circle. It's like a mela. I mean, it was almost free. I mean, 10 rupees is how, I mean, not at all expensive. And you
Absolutely.
get like extremely interesting books from there. And my father used to buy from the railway platform when he used to come back from office. He would just pick up some books from the railway station like that. So
Wonderful, wonderful. So this would have surely had a very strong kind of impression on your reading habits.
that's true.
And were you also kind of reading all throughout your school days, or that is something you picked up slightly towards, let's say, high school or some other time?
So I am not that much of a reader, but I used to read maybe once a week. I Because we had a library in our school where you could lend a book for a week. So I had read many Gujarati literature as part of this, and also there was a library in my locality where we used to live. So there also I used to go and I used to sit there. It was a very quiet and very nice library. I still feel like going back to that place. They had very good collection, so mostly what I have read was mostly Gujarati books. And I don't read Gujarati anymore, unfortunately. I really want to get back to that.
So Gujarati is your mother tongue.
Yes, Gujarati is my mother tongue, and my school education was in Gujarati.
Wow,
Till
wonderful.
10th standard.
Till 10th
Yes,
standard. But
yes.
living in Mumbai and
Yes.
having a Gujarati medium
Yes, my
school.
father was very particular about that primary education should be in your mother tongue. In
Wow.
fact, my youngest sibling, who is much younger to all of us,
Hmm.
my mother wanted him to get English medium education,
Hmm.
and she also got him admitted to an English medium school. My father is very religious,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
he used to go away for many days, like 40 days, sometimes 4 months, for religious activities.
Hmm. Hmm.
So this happened in his absence.
Hmm.
So when he came back, he
He-
cancelled the admission and put him again in Gujarati medium school. So he is a very firm believer that your primary education should be in your mother tongue. So,
you know what? One of the important aspect
hmm,
nowadays, this mother tongue being the
hmm,
medium of primary education
hmm, hmm, hmm.
has got renewed. There's a
Yes,
lot of interest in that.
right, right.
And I know that you also have very good flair for language, which we're going to actually come later on
Hmm,
in a
hmm,
few minutes.
hmm.
But given the fact that your education, primary education, has been in Gujarati, has that also influenced the way you think? In let's say when you're thinking about mathematical problems, or let's say looking at some scientific aspects, would you still have that language going in your mind?
I think so because, for example, if I were put in an English medium school, and this is one reason why my father was against it, we were all speaking Gujarati at home, and to understand things in a language which is not so familiar to you, right? You are not talking in that language, and English is not an easy language for Indians, right? So. I might not have understood things that well if it was taught to me in a different language than my mother tongue. I think that language was not the barrier at that age. I mean, these days I don't. I mean, there are children speaking in English even at home, so for them it does make sense that they will understand. But at our time, that was like my father was like, you can wear specs of like goggles of any color, but your own eyes should be strong enough to see through it. So that was his argument in support of primary education in your own language. In fact,
That's a wonderful
yeah,
analogy.
yeah,
Actually, it's very interesting
yeah.
analogy. Yes.
So in fact, he was. I mean, till our primary school, he used to teach us at home. Whatever we used to study in the school, we when we come back, he used to sit with us, try to understand what was taught and explain. And he was also giving tuitions to our neighbors. So he enjoyed teaching. Even now, when he comes to Pune and even in
Hmm.
Mumbai, although he doesn't teach the school curriculum, but he teaches Marathi reading, Urdu reading to children who do not know these languages.
Wow.
Even if he goes to mosque, he just randomly will ask some children, do you know how to read Marathi? You are living in Maharashtra, you should know this is otherwise you will not learn many things which are written in Marathi around you. So he will
Absolutely.
take Balbharti with him.
Ah.
He makes hundreds of copies of Balbharti of Urdu,
Hmm.
Gujarati, Marathi, and he teaches them. So my father used to teach my cousins. We
Hmm.
lived in joint family earlier,
Hmm.
and then my cousins were in English medium, and he knew how difficult, how challenging it was for him to teach them in English. And
Yes.
he later also forced my uncle to change their medium of instruction from English to Gujarati. So
Very interesting,
yeah.
very interesting. This this language and
Hmm.
culture kind of connection
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
is a very important one,
Yes, yes.
because you can also see that
Hmm,
although sometimes children might be educated in
hmm,
English,
hmm.
they may be exposed to only one part of the culture.
True, true,
Whereas if you are really educated in the
true,
vernacular,
true.
there is a different kind of
Yes,
facet.
true,
See, by
true.
default,
Hmm,
anyway, we will pick up English and
hmm,
Hindi.
hmm,
Hindi
hmm,
also
hmm,
nowadays,
hmm.
because it is now
Right,
across
right,
the country.
right.
Whereas if you are not having this foundation in your mother
In your
tongue,
own language, yeah.
uh, because I can see in my own case, for example, I was also educated in English, but I had still a strong connection to Kannada
Hmm,
and
hmm,
to
hmm.
certain extent even Sanskrit.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Even now, if I want to really, go back and listen to, let's say, some music or some poetry,
Hmm.
uh, although one can read English, but you'll
Yes.
never be getting the
Exactly,
same feel as, let's say, in
exactly,
other.
exactly. In fact, my father these days says that
Hmm,
if you want to destroy a culture, snatch the language from that population.
very nice.
That's what he believes. And you're right. Even today, when I think about something, even if I'm multiplying
Hmm.
two numbers, I will multiply it in Gujarati in
Ah,
my mind.
this is
So
exactly what I
yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to
I
do.
I,
Yeah.
I realize that you wanted to understand this. Whether even today, whether I think in Gujarati, I think yes, very much. I mean,
See,
yeah.
because that
Uh-huh.
kind of
Uh,
uh, ease of thinking
yes.
generally doesn't come automatically in a
Hmm,
language
hmm,
which is not your mother
hmm,
tongue.
hmm,
Of course, a lot of people pick up the language later on,
hmm, hmm,
and they
hmm,
might be able to do that.
hmm, hmm.
But having this strong anchoring in a particular language, that too in your mother tongue, would
Yes.
have some very interesting
Yeah,
effects.
I'm
Uh,
really grateful that I did that. I
yeah,
mean, I mean, I cannot. I can't imagine a childhood
yeah,
different than this.
yeah. Because see, I've also seen children who do not have that kind of background.
Sure,
They may not be able to kind of comprehend
sure,
some nuances of other cultures
sure.
without, because as you absolutely correctly mentioned, the anchoring of a culture is in the language. That is the
Exactly,
first
exactly,
exposure to that.
exactly.
And on a lighter note, I should also then learn more Marathi from your
Sure, yeah,
father.
he will be happy to
Yeah, yeah,
anytime. Yeah,
yeah. That's something which is on my kind of
yeah.
list, which I'm trying to
Mhm.
figure out how to get better in Marathi. So now you are now getting exposed to this kind of nice kind of anchoring in language, and you're also living in Mumbai. And where is that seed of mathematics coming now in your schooling and other times?
So I cannot
Huh.
pinpoint where exactly it got developed, but I used to enjoy solving mathematics sums to that extent that I would not wait for the year to start, the academic year to start. I will get the book, mathematics book from some neighbor or seniors or whatever. I would go to this Matunga bookstore or second hand or by any means, and I will just start solving them in the summer vacation itself before the year starts. And I used to enjoy that so much. So I cannot really pinpoint
Pinpoint,
because
yeah.
nobody in my family was into
To
mathematics.
mathematics.
Nobody, not even in education. I mean, so to
Nice,
say. I mean,
nice.
my father was very supporter of education. My grandfather was also, as compared to his generation and the community that we come from, he was well read, and he was like very in support of education, both the worldly education and science and also religious
Yeah.
education. And yeah, and he used to write.
Hmm.
He has so many compositions written by himself, and he was also like a shire.
Hmm.
My father also writes. I mean, he doesn't write anymore, but he used to write. My uncle writes, so they write in Gujarati.
Wow,
And
nice.
they I mean, I am really a fan of what my grandfather and my uncle has written, and definitely I am a fan of what my father has written.
Yes, yes. We'll come to the poetry
Yes,
aspect
yes, yes,
slightly later,
yes,
because that is
yes.
the one element I would want to, get more insight into your
Hmm,
interest in that
hmm, hmm,
particular thing. But before that, we'll grasp the mathematical thinking
hmm,
aspect of it.
hmm, hmm,
Now you're finishing your school,
hmm,
and
hmm,
you're also kind of, getting to get the flavor of various different disciplines
hmm,
in
hmm, hmm,
science and
hmm, hmm,
mathematics.
hmm, hmm.
And how was your transition into college? What did you?
Yeah, so my transition to college was little bit challenging because I studied in Gujarati medium.
Yeah, yeah.
Even my 8th, ninth, 10th standard, I have heard that some of the students who learn in vernacular medium, at least the last 3 years of the school is in English, at least the
Mm.
maths and science subjects. It was not so for me. It was still in
It's
Gujarati.
still everything was
Yes,
in.
but the technical terms, they were writing the English word in the brackets in the textbook.
Hmm.
So I used to keep that in mind
Mind.
because I knew it will be useful. So when I went to college, I there was no difficulty in understanding what the teacher is saying, but that freedom of asking questions and the fear of being laughed at, which I did get laughed at multiple times for
Hmm.
speaking incorrect English. So
But
so
you speak as well as anybody else.
now that is
Yeah.
now, but not as well as anyone else. But
Mm.
yeah, over the period of time, yeah, this is because I worked hard in the first two
Plus,
years
yeah, yeah.
because my college textbooks, I used to sit with it. I used to take a dictionary, English to Gujarati dictionary next to me. I used to underline the words which I did not understand and underline it, and with using a pencil, I would write the Gujarati translation next to it. And in the very first chapter, the entire chapter was full with this scribblings, this
Scribblings.
translation, etc. But over the period of time, once you get familiar with the terms, etc., it reduced. So if you look at my textbooks right now, it will be all English to Gujarati, English to Gujarati,
Even
English.
now you do it?
I no, now I don't do
Huh.
it, but I used to do it.
Yeah.
My textbooks from then
Nice.
has
Nice.
this translation next to it. So
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. This is something which is very intriguing because I've also seen a lot of people who have strong anchoring in their mother tongue
Mhm,
sometimes have some very interesting pictures of the concepts
mhm,
which is otherwise not present in somebody who has kind of learned a lot of things
mhm,
in let's say in a second language or
mhm,
in certain times in a third
mhm,
language.
mhm.
So that kind of exposure, so you're now making a transition as you're telling one of the what probably maths would have not been difficult, it is the language which would have been difficult for you, right? Because the transition is making you
Yes, yeah, maths was not
yeah,
difficult. Yeah,
yeah.
just
So
the language, the expression.
yeah.
Huh.
So how was it to study mathematics at that time? What is the kind of process you were looking at? So were you already inclined towards mathematics, or let's say you are now interested in sciences, but still kind of probably getting a grasp of mathematics at that time?
No, I was interested in science, maths.
Hmm.
I loved languages, which
Language,
I
yeah.
had to leave
Yeah.
unfortunately after the 12th standard. But uh, our teachers, fortunately, I went to a very good college in Bombay. It is the SIES college,
Hmm.
South Indian Education Society, where the teachers were very good, and the interest continued. And I was like, so I cannot tell why mathematics, but as I told you, I liked all of it, but mathematics was something which I could not leave.
Leave.
I mean,
Yes.
that was like my, you can say, my
Anchor.
yeah,
Kind.
or bread and butter or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
Not bread and butter, but that is I was leaving on mathematics in
Wonderful.
that sense. Yeah. So
Wonderful.
so
So that means that you, even let's say after 11th and 12th,
hmm.
you already are kind of getting very interested in mathematics, or you already
Yes.
made a decision, or you're still thinking about it.
So made a decision. See, career for me was not certain.
Mm-hmm.
See, in my family, even in today's date, my cousins, my even my own siblings, girls, my sisters, they got married at a very young age. Like they will get engaged by the time they pass their 10th standard, and by the time they turn 18, they are married. My elder sister is a grandmother of two children now. So she got
Wow.
married at 19. My mother was married at 19. My niece, who is my elder sister's daughter, got married at 19. So 19 is the age where they all get married, 18, 19, sometimes even before 18, which is illegal.
Yes, yes.
But that's how it is. So
Yeah.
for me, when I was in school or even when I was a college, I was always like, I did not know what will happen next year. So it was like this. So the
Where
planning was never part of my thought process.
where
Planning
did
for
you
the
get
future.
the strength?
Where did I get this strength?
Because the social pressure
Yes.
is probably the biggest pressure you can ever face, sometimes even bigger than peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes, because you can always change your
Yes, yes,
friends,
yes, yes.
you'll
Yeah.
never be able to change your family.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Even now, I mean, the situation is not any different. Is
Mm,
when I'm talking about something which is like 30
mm,
or 25 years back. So strength, I do not know. It was always very, very difficult.
mm,
Always very challenging.
mm,
But see, even this, though my father was so much about reading books and promoting reading, etc., he was not happy about girl children going to college for
mm,
some reasons. Maybe he had bad experience or he had heard stories from others. It is not coming from a wrong
mm,
place. I mean,
mm,
I also try to see from his perspective. He wanted to protect us. He had some maybe experience that when girls go to college, things are not nice for
mm,
girls.
mm,
Maybe the college where he went to or he saw his friends going to, maybe they were not talking good, well about women. And also now I see, because see, he had gone to colleges which were like mostly Muslim
mm,
community,
mm.
populated by Muslim community, and when those girls do not have freedom at home,
Yes.
and when you do not have freedom at home, and even the men, the like, what is it, mixing of genders,
Genders. Yes. Yeah.
where it is
Co-education.
yes, co-education,
Mm,
where it is not common scenario, then maybe one, it's like a suddenly found freedom, no, like a
yeah.
new
Yeah.
found freedom, and maybe things were not nice at that
Mm,
time, so he was not at all in support of sending the girl child to college. But my teachers, neighbors, they all came, convinced him that बाकी लोगों की शादी करनी है तो कर दो,
Kada.
she is interested, let her study, like that. So finally he agreed.
That's
Yeah.
remarkable on two fronts.
Mhm.
One is, of course, your father probably did the right thing,
Mhm.
because he would have also been going against the kind of wind.
Mhm.
Second is, I'm more interested in the way you were thinking, because it's not an easy thing.
It's not,
It's
yeah.
not an easy thing. It's also something where you are also making a choice not only for yourself,
Mhm.
but also maybe slightly on a
Yes, yes,
broader
yes, of course.
context.
That responsibility I still feel on my shoulders,
Yes.
because every move that I make,
Mm, mm,
there is a generation woman in my
mm.
family, next generation, and even my cousins. I mean, it can send a wrong message. So yeah,
It
I
has
feel that.
probably sent the right message, right? Because
I
I
hope so.
think this is probably one of the most important thing
Hmm.
to for them to see,
Hmm.
that equal opportunity. It's not even
Yes.
like some
Mm-hmm.
disproportionate
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. It's
Hmm.
just an equal opportunity.
Right.
And has that influenced your thinking in your local kind of family, like seeing you now, a person who is not just only pursuing interest,
Hmm.
who is now a professor at an institute which actually literally teaches students across the subcontinent, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
uh, has that influenced the thinking?
So it's interesting the way. So when I completed my PhD, for example, uh, my father was very happy. Whoever used to visit home, guest, etc., he would show my thesis that, see, my daughter has written this. So he was definitely proud. My mother always supported my education, always. I mean, she was like, is matlab, she used to tell my father, if we haven't done anything wrong, we should trust our children,
Yeah,
they will not
absolutely.
go astray. And she wants to study, let her study. We can have different decision for the other girls in the family, but let her study, because she wants to, she's interested in. So she was always, and even when there were like marriage proposals, etc., she was the one who would say no, she wants to
Mm.
study, and we will not think about it till she finishes her education, etc. So she was definitely, I mean, without that it's not possible, because she was also different from her own sisters. I mean,
Yes,
I have seen my
yes.
cousins getting married at a very young age. So, and the mother was also a believer that लड़कियों को जितने जल्दी शादी
Mm,
करके
mm.
अपने घर पे पहुंचाओ, that's better for everyone, like that. So that was one thing. I forgot your original
Yeah, no,
question.
no,
What were
that's
you saying?
perfectly fine. No, in fact, I am also taking deviation,
Okay,
because
okay.
all along the
Huh,
time we have been talking about
huh,
either your father's influence or your
right.
own initiative.
Hmm.
But the most important influence probably is your mother,
True.
right?
Yes.
Because these decisions would
Hmm.
have not been possible
true.
but for the
Definitely,
support of
definitely,
your mother.
definitely.
And you also are mentioning that her thinking was also slightly different from
Yes, yes,
some
yes,
others.
very much.
Uh,
Even now, even now. So, and yeah, so you asked me that whether the thinking of the society, whether
Hmm.
my move has changed. So there was at that time when I got the PhD, there was some Gujarati newspaper channel who came to interview me because I was maybe the first woman doing mathematics, doing PhD in PhD
Hmm.
in any subject,
Hmm.
and in particular in mathematics. There was a felicitation that was held in our community,
Wow.
this thing, etc. So, but having said all these things, some my cousins, etc., they say we will educate our daughters, but not to this
This
extent. I
extent.
mean, this is some extreme. And I also, even today, I hear people, I mean, see, my example is still an extreme because I am unmarried, which is not a good message, good situation for them.
Well,
But
that is that depends
no,
on the
from their
viewpoint.
point of view, I'm
Yeah,
saying
their
from
point.
their point of view, they
Yeah.
may not want
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
daughters to end up like this. So, but even for women who are like school teachers or college teachers who are married, who have children, but who are managing very well the family and the work,
Hmm.
in there are such women, but what they speak about such women behind their
Hmm.
back is not very very nice.
Nice.
I mean, they are not encouraging. I mean, I don't know whether they say it in on their face. I think they do, because what I hear,
Hmm.
they also mentioned that they keep discouraging them. So it's still this. I mean, it's a long way to go still. I mean,
Yeah,
so
but
I'm giving an example of a woman who is balancing
what?
both work and family.
Yes.
Still, they talk not very good things about such a person. So
Yeah, that
okay.
that chain has to be broken, right?
Yes, yes.
Because you know, at a level of an individual,
Hmm.
that really
Yes,
actually is
yes.
important.
No, it's a long way to go, and I'm not just saying in our
Hmm.
community
Yeah,
in
yeah,
particular.
exactly,
In
exactly,
general, all over India, I
absolutely.
think there are such families. There are some sections of society where this is still a problem. So.
Which makes your own journey even more remarkable, because the fact that one can see a point if in case there is a strong economic reason.
Mhm, mhm,
For example, let's say you were doing BTech in an IIT or
mhm,
something like
mhm,
that.
mhm,
Then at least then the parents will get a little more convinced that okay, oh, there might be something very big opportunity.
mhm,
Here
mhm,
you are taking up mathematics, and that too, so-called pure mathematics. Although I
mhm,
don't like that word
mhm,
pure
mhm,
aspect, because
mhm.
mathematics is mathematics, so to
Sure.
speak.
Yeah.
But the fact that there is some kind of uh, strength, this
Hmm.
is a central point I would want to again come back,
Hmm.
because it might not look like something big for you,
Mhm.
but if for a person who is now trying to understand this, it looks as though it's a very very big thing, because what you've really taken and done is something quite remarkable. I would want to know in what way that thought process really seeped in, because see, at any point of time you could have given in,
Yes.
right? You could have
Yeah.
really told, okay, I'm going to just toe the line and just
Mhm.
go ahead.
Hmm.
But here you're actually taking a step forward, and
Hmm.
not one step, multiple steps.
Yes.
And you're also not doing something which doesn't require intellectual kind of effort. You're really looking into something which is high end mathematics. How is your thinking? So during the college time and the transitions time, can you tell us a little bit about it?
So I can't tell you where this strength
Mhm.
came from, but I realized that if I want to do something for myself, I will have to do it myself.
Nice.
I cannot depend on anyone else to take that stand for me. So that was something that was clear. So I mean, I will give you one example where after taking admission into PhD, I had this opportunity to travel to Italy for
Hmm, hmm.
for a workshop, 3 weeks workshop or
So
something.
before that, can you tell where did you finish your masters and then
Okay,
PhD?
so
That so
my
that we come to this
college,
part. Yeah.
BSc,
Hmm,
junior college and BSc was from SIS college.
hmm, hmm.
Then I went to Bombay University, Mumbai
Yeah.
University for my masters,
Masters.
MSc. Was also admitted into IIT Bombay for my
Hmm,
masters.
hmm.
But there was one requirement which, if I had negotiated, maybe I could have requested them to make it flexible for me. that I stay in the hostel
Mm.
in IIT Bombay, which my family did not allow.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
I had to, and also the fees was, though right now when I think about it, it was just 5,500 because it included the hostel fee.
Mm. Mm.
So and so we did not have that much of money. See, my father was a clerk. We were five siblings,
Mm.
and as I told you, he was very religious. So
Yeah.
he used to go away for a very longish period of time, and we had some tough situations
Yeah,
at home.
yeah.
So my mother, though she wanted to support, she gave me the money, but she told me that you please pay me back somehow. So I
Somehow.
took tuitions. I was also willing to commute every day. I tried it for a couple of months. It was not easy because Kanjurmarg to
Mm.
IIT,
Mm.
the buses were very very crowded in the morning,
Mm.
and also the walk to the main lecture hall, etc. And also they had some practical sessions at night at IIT Bombay
Yes,
at
yeah.
that time. So I thought it's, I mean, I'm giving tuitions and I am doing all these things. I may not be able to sustain it like this. And I was told that Bombay University education is not bad.
Mm.
I mean, they
Yeah.
have excellent teachers in
Teachers, yeah.
mathematics.
Mm.
So I told, just for the brand name, am I doing all these things? I mean, I can learn mathematics even there,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So then I resigned or took
Mm.
my name from this IIT Bombay, and I joined
Joined.
Bombay University. So I lost a couple of months of
Mm.
lectures
Mm.
from there, but yeah, I did manage
Manage. And so you
eventually.
got into MSc and then you continued to do your PhD at the same place.
Yes, I continue to do my PhD at the same place.
So
That's correct.
you were telling about your trip to Italy. We are going to
Yes,
come to that point.
sure.
But
Mhm.
before that, can you just give us a brief overview of what is the mathematics you were doing in your
Sure,
MSc and
definitely,
PhD,
definitely.
so that we'll
Yeah,
get to
so about this, even before joining Bombay University, I was from after my masters, I was recruited by a private software company for doing something called as mathematical analysis,
the.
R&D
Hmm.
section, where we were supposed to read some computer science papers and translate it to the coders, the programmers in the company, and they used to, I mean, just reading the papers and translating. So that was something which I did for 1 year, and uh, along with this I was also doing MPhil remotely.
Okay.
So I was
Okay.
going there 3 times a week, and I was doing my MPhil in mathematics. So because, as I told you, planning my future was never certain in
Certain.
my
Yeah.
hand. So
Yeah.
I was like taking one step at a time. कि जितना होता है, let me try MPhil at least, one and plus one like epsilon increment to what I am already doing, like that. So and I was also at TIFR Bombay for the PhD program.
Mm.
I did my first year coursework
Mm.
as an NBHM scholar at TIFR Bombay. Uh, but then eventually I joined Bombay University. So about my research,
Yeah.
so my advisor introduced me to a problem called eigenvalue optimization problem, which is which comes under the umbrella of shape sensitivity analysis. So in the sense that if how does a particular functional is sensitive to the shape of the domain.
Mm.
For example, the classical isoperimetric problem that we have in geometry, that among all the domains having a fixed volume or a fixed area, if you are talking about a planar domain, which domain will have the least perimeter.
Mhm.
So it's like I give you a graph paper that we use in the physics laboratory,
Mm.
and
Mm.
I give you the thread that we use in tying the supplements in the exam.
Mm.
And I give you a thread of fixed length, and I make a loop out of it, and I ask you to make shapes of your choice.
Mm.
And the since I have made a loop, the perimeter is fixed. Now this, from this loop you can make any shape, and the moment the shape changes, you are putting it on the graph paper, and you can compute the area
Area.
enclosed
Yes.
by
Yeah.
this curve,
Yeah.
right? And among all these shapes that you can possibly make, infinitely many possibilities are there. For which shape will the area be maximum,
Maximum.
like that.
So that's an
So
optimization.
that's an that's a shape
Shape.
optimization problem. So it is like under certain constraints, and which shape will optimize the cost functional that you have in mind.
Okay.
So for example, I can ask a dual question. You fix the area, and you want to enclose that area with the shortest possible curve.
Mm.
Then which shape should you
Should
make,
make.
so that the perimeter is minimum. So this is the isoperimetric problem. There are similar problems in coming from originating from physics, mathematical
Hmm.
physics,
Hmm.
which are called eigenvalue optimizations
Appreciate.
or energy minimization
Hmm.
problems, shape optimization problem, where they are used in optimal designs, like how to get the optimal shape for a given situation where certain cost functional is to be minimized, and you have certain constraints in mind. You don't have complete freedom. There are, it is like any other optimization
Optimization.
problem. It's like that.
It's quite remarkable that in that way you actually have been able to do this research on shaped optimization
Hmm.
along with the life optimization.
Oh, I see.
Right, because you have been also trying to
Okay. We are
c-
talking
c-
about, I see.
I'm taking it
Okay.
slightly
Yeah, 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 you can see.
in a broader context,
Mm-hmm.
which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense you are also then learning high end mathematics in terms of geometry,
Mm-hmm.
and also in you also started to work on differential equations right then, or
Yes,
Hmm.
yeah. So this, I was interested in geometry when I
Geometry.
began my research in mathematics. My advisor was also a geometer,
Hmm.
but he had this problem in his mind, which uses both geometry and analysis.
Hmm.
So and PDE is a part of analysis.
Part of
So
that.
that's how I got introduced to partial differential equations, because this eigenvalue optimization, that eigenvalue is of an elliptic differential operator, namely the Laplacian,
No, okay.
which is a very important
Operator.
differential operator,
Yeah.
because it's invariant under isometries of the domain, and it is useful. And also it's a fact that if you have any linear differential equation which is invariant under the isometries of Rn, then it has to be a polynomial in Laplacian.
Hmm.
So that makes it an important operator to study phenomena where the underlying principle is independent of the position and the direction,
Direction.
because it's invariant under isometries.
So it's kind of isotropy is a related problem, or like it's
What do you mean by
means
isotropy?
there's no specific directionality associated with that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean phenomena where, even so, it's like without loss of generality, you can assume that you are at a particular position and you are looking at a particular direction,
Direction.
and it doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Yeah.
It's like you are sitting in a vast ocean,
Hmm. All
and it
directions.
doesn't matter in which direction you are looking at, and at which point in the ocean
Ocean.
you are located at. It's like that.
So the motivation for such problems come from purely geometry viewpoint, or of course these problems surely would have a lot of applications too.
Yes.
What is the general motivation
The
for
motivation for the problem that I worked on during my PhD thesis is coming from physics. There
Hmm.
was this conjecture by Lord Rayleigh
Yeah.
in his book Theory of Sound,
Sound? Wow.
1877. So he conjectured that the principal frequency of a fixed membrane having a
Yes.
fixed volume
Yes.
is minimum for a planar disk. So
Yes.
so this is what my PhD problem is based on this.
What a surprise! Because essentially this particular drum,
Hmm.
the modes of the drum is Bessel function,
Yeah, yes.
right? Because
Hmm.
some particular
Hmm.
solutions happen to be Bessel
Hmm.
functions,
Hmm. Hmm.
and yeah, this is a lot of interest. Incidentally, C.V. Raman
Hmm.
also did a lot of research on Mridangam,
Okay,
motivated by Lord Raleigh's work,
I see.
because he
Hmm.
read the theory of sound and he
Hmm.
applied these kind of questions to the modes of vibrations
I
on the
see.
surface of a
Okay,
mridangam and tabla and
I
other kind
see.
of.
Is this available somewhere?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
I
actually
would like to
available.
read
Yeah,
C.V.
yeah, I
Raman's.
would be very happy to share.
Okay,
In
yeah,
fact,
please
I would
do.
also
Thank
kind
you.
of link in the show notes.
Hmm.
But this is a fascinating problem, and
Yes, it
so
is.
then you take the same problem and move forward, or what do you do?
So this the conjecture by Lord Rayleigh, it
Hmm.
was solved by Faber and Kran in 1920s.
Hmm.
Uh, but we had, so they proved it for any simply connected planar domain having a fixed volume. Okay, but we generalize it to domains with punctures.
Hmm.
So suppose there are domains with punctures, then among all such domains having fixed volume, which particular in this admissible family of domains, for which domain can you say that the eigenvalue is
Again,
optimum?
very interesting. Yeah, there lies the optimization problem.
Yes,
Very
yes.
wonderful. Now you tell me about your trip to Italy. There is something
Yes,
which you
yes,
are.
yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
was telling that in the context of standing for yourself.
Yes, yes.
So this was my first opportunity to travel abroad.
During the
And
PhD or just after?
during the PhD, I
During
was attending a conference.
conference.
I had applied for a grant and I got the grant. So I was, of course, very thrilled. At the same time, nervous because I had never stepped out of Bombay.
Wow.
Okay, the first time I went out of Bombay is immediately after my MSc. That was the only incident before this foreign trip where I went for my net exam. Okay, to give the net exam. That was my only experience stepping out alone. I mean, that time, of course, my club batchmates were also giving the exam.
An exam.
So I had come from Bombay to Pune because those days the net exams
Was it Pune?
used to happen in Pune. So I was not alone. I was with batchmates. But this was my first international trip. I did not ask my family.
Oh, you
I
see?
did not because I knew. See, they did not let me stay in the hostel. So I knew if I asked them, they are going to say no.
Okay.
So I bought the tickets.
Wow, you planned everything?
Yeah. I planned. I got the visa, and one day before the trip, when I'm packing my bag, of course they know something is happening, and I tell them I'm going to Italy tomorrow. So
That will be a shocker for them, huh?
yeah. They were like, "Oh, you never told us," etc., etc. Oh, and also they did not know what is the procedure. They did not know that one has to apply for visa because they never went except for Hajj. Nobody in the family had, or for work to Middle East, which many Muslims do. So in my family in particular, no one had gone even for Hajj or any other things outside India. So they did not know that what all I did, that one has to apply for visa, etc. So they were very ignorant, but they were shocked that I'm leaving and I had not even told them about it. So one has to take such steps. If you keep asking them, knowing them, they are going to say no. And if you know that you are not doing anything wrong, I think it is okay to be disobedient.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Because you are also doing the right thing.
Yes, yeah.
Because
But you have to believe in yourself that what you are doing is right. I mean, you should not just be like rebellion
Rebel.
because you think you are next generation, you are smarter. Not. I mean, you should be convinced that what you are doing is right. You should have that conviction. Yeah.
Again, brings back the point of the strength.
Mhm.
As I told, it's very easy for somebody who has lived it sometimes to not actually see the kind of the height of that particular kind of achievement. It is an achievement, right? Because you are taking a step which is also contrary to general perception, at least in the way your family is not expecting you to do. But they also see the benefit that you are really doing something which is kind of very remarkable compared to anybody in their own family. So all along this particular time, was there enough encouragement you were getting?
Even now there is encouragement because see, now I'm living all by myself. So now they are like, you say no. I mean, I always say this: once you travel with the escape velocity, you are not part of the orbit anymore. So now it doesn't matter.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but some they are still. But see, they are parents after all. They are concerned, and they are concerned about my future. But they know now. They know that whatever they tell, I am not going to listen unless I also agree with what they are saying. So encouragement meaning now it is indifferent. Like they are happy what I have achieved. They have certain concerns which any parents would naturally have, but otherwise things are fine. If there is some resistance from relatives, which all that burden, of course, my mother has to bear because I am not living there. She is living there, and she has to answer all those questions. But she deals with them quite smartly and quite with. She is very strong in that sense. So.
See, the crucial element in
Hmm.
this aspect.
Hmm.
In fact, this is something I also discuss even among students and other things. One is, especially when it comes to female students, it doesn't matter which community they are or something. Two important aspects become critical. One is, of course, you should have knowledge, which you are now, when especially this is relevant for PhD and others who are really taking into some stream which is beyond conventional MSc or something like that. And second point is the economic freedom, which means that you now have knowledge and economic freedom, which means that the world is open to you to do anything. Uh, since you have lived this literally, I only just talk through examples. Of course, I have also kind of come through a specific pathway where economics was also an issue, but I could see that the benefits of being a man and also being a person who is of an upper caste, you will always have some specific social privileges.
Privileges. Yeah, right.
But here you have gained knowledge, become economically independent, and you have also come out of the constraints of general kind of orthodoxy and then other things. So what do you have to say for, let's say, somebody who is wanting to really take this kind of step? Because see, there are many people who might be kind of constrained by these things. A person who has lived it is the
Hmm.
best person to talk about it.
Right. Yeah. So see, I would like thank a conference in for women which I had attended, because there was one mathematician, woman mathematician, who this was, I think this was ICM, in International
Hmm,
Congress of
hmm,
Mathematicians, which was held in Madrid in the year 2006, if I'm not wrong. So I had attended that, and there was a section on women in mathematics.
hmm,
And there, one very reputed mathematician, woman mathematician, comes in front and tells that her journey was not easy.
hmm,
Though this is like a woman from a Western country where you would imagine that they have all the freedom and liberal society and so on. So that gave me more confidence that you are not alone. There are others also who overcame those barriers. And so having role model
hmm.
is very, very important,
Important.
that if this person can do it, then why can't I do it? But see, I am also involved in this Indian women in mathematics
Yes, yes.
kind of
I'm going to
this
come to
thing.
that particular point. Yeah,
So
please tell. Yeah.
so we meet many young women
Hmm,
as part of these activities,
hmm,
and I tell them that, see, if you really want to do it, do something, you have to stand for yourself. You
hmm.
cannot expect your family. Of course, that support is very, very important,
Important.
but it is you that matters the most. So if you strongly believe in something, you have to take that stand. But having said that, it's not going to be a bed of roses always. There will be good days, there will be bad days. And you should not like, it might happen that you might regret your decision later, but what you want to do at this particular time, it's like you have an initial point and initial velocity.
Velocity.
Your trajectory is locally determined by that, but it need not be your global.
Global
That should
threat.
not decide your global trajectory, right?
Absolutely.
So locally, at every point in time in your life, you have to make that decision. It could be getting married, it
Hmm.
could be being a homemaker, whatever you feel you want to do in life, you have to do it.
Take a
Yeah,
choice. Yeah.
it could be anything. I mean, not everyone should necessarily should become a scientist, or highly educated. Your goals may be different. I mean, education is not the only way one can enlighten ourselves. So degree is not important. I mean, what I mean is, whatever you want to do in life, you have to stand for
Stand.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. See,
So,
this element, this takes care of the knowledge part of it, because as you correctly mentioned,
hmm,
people can have degrees, but
right,
they may not have knowledge.
right,
The other way around is
yes,
also very true in
yes,
many
yes,
cases.
yes.
The other aspect is economics, and
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask specifically about that,
Mm-hmm.
because I increasingly think that a lot of times people who are not economically well to do
Hmm.
uh, sometimes get kind of constrained in going into the stage where they're supposed to go. For example, I'll give you a hypothetical example. If two women students who
Mm-hmm.
are interested, let's say, in doing mathematics,
Mm-hmm.
and one is already a second generation
Mm-hmm.
kind of educated
Mm-hmm.
person,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is coming from, let's say, not so well to do,
Yes.
although their interest might be similar,
Mm.
but the first case would actually probably get propelled in slightly more longer
I
trajectories,
understand.
as you
Huh.
were mentioning,
Yes. Yes.
because the kick from the
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
the push,
Yes.
the acceleration would be more.
Mm.
I'm always a little worried about those people, especially minorities, in case of, let's say, women, or any, it can be any kind of
Mm. Mm.
other kind of
Mm. Mm.
minorities too,
Mm.
where there is already a negation due to the economics,
Yes.
and added to that, you have these kind of social constraints.
True.
How does how should one take that stage? Because that is actually the biggest worry for me, because
Mm.
I'm not saying that it will be easy for women,
Mm. Mm.
but let's say you have very progressive parents and you
Mm.
have a reasonably good economic situation,
Mm. Mm.
then at least there is opportunity
True.
and also push
True.
in the family.
True.
But what if all these things are not there?
Yeah. So that's a very I mean, it's a challenge
Challenge.
right
Yeah.
now. And I see very, so for example, I will tell you that when you are connecting the social seen at that particular point where you are supposed to take admission, and there is the family is not so supportive of it, and in addition to that you have this economic barrier
Hmm,
also.
hmm.
So I mean, as I told you, I had to pay this fees and my mother did not have that money.
Yeah.
She managed somehow, but she wanted me to pay it back, not like when I start earning.
Right. Very, very
Right,
soon.
very soon. So and that time the fees were not so like high, right?
Hmm.
Annual fees 5,000 is not much, but uh, so I also had this option of going to this university where the fees is much lower,
Lower. Yeah.
right? So unfortunately in today's time I'm not sure even the university is that cheap in terms of fees. For that matter, from what I hear is even our ISER Pune, when it comes to the
Yes.
fees, is not like I there. I'm sure there will be students for whom this paying this much fees is going to be very challenging. I mean, it's a sad part. Unfortunately, in India, that right now it is not possible for a poor person to really get good quality education without having enough money, which was
Absolutely right.
not so when we
Not
were
so.
growing up.
I second your point
Yes,
completely
yes,
on two fronts. One
yes.
is I also feel that even education in institutions like ISER is not very easy for people, a lot of people,
Yes, yes.
because you can see the fee
I know,
structures
I
and other
know, I
things have
know. It's
this thing.
it's really sad.
Yeah. So this is
Yeah,
a kind of also an appeal. If somebody is listening higher
right.
ups, I request them to
Yeah, because
really look
rather
into
than
this.
spending money on things which I mean, this is more important. And I think in our generation, many students
Uh,
could study because it was manageable. I mean, it was
Absolutely
not
correct. I am actually an example of that,
exactly.
and
I
you
mean,
are also an example of
exactly,
that.
because I mean, if I tell you, we had this girls' free ship in
Hmm.
Maharashtra, and I studied in a Sarvajanik school,
School.
which is
Yeah.
like, and my classmates when I was in school were coming from slums like Dharavi. All of them. I'm not saying just one or two. They were all coming from this labor
Yes.
workers
Yes.
who were Kumbharwada in
Hmm. Hmm.
Dharavi. There is a Kumbharwada. So they were all potters, and I mean, you can imagine how much they may be earning. I
Absolutely.
had classmates who were children of sweeper,
Yes. Yes.
and I mean, it,
I had a classmate whose father was a cobbler.
exactly.
Okay. I mean,
So see,
that was
they
growing up
would
in
not
Bangalore.
have they.
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine in today's time whether will they get education even up to 10th standard if that system was not there. I mean, if the education was not funded by the government, and I really think that it's a very because I cannot imagine if I were born in today's time, and if our economic condition was exactly the same, it would have been a devastating condition.
Difficult.
I could study because I could study cheap. There were
Yeah.
options.
Absolutely.
There
Absolutely.
were options where I didn't have to pay so much money, and
Absolutely
but
correct.
with that
Absolutely correct.
option is not there anymore.
Yes. In fact, that's a major worry. I second your point, because that was also a route to upliftment,
Yes.
because at least being educated
Hmm.
with reasonable competence
Hmm.
would have not assured you your future, but
Hmm.
it would give you at least an opportunity to
Exactly.
explore
Exactly.
something. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And yeah, we see we can support whoever is well to do, but how many children will
yeah,
you be
no,
able to support?
exactly.
That's not a solution.
Solution at all.
It's not a sustainable solution. We
Absolutely correct.
really have to come up with policies
Yes.
where
Yeah.
this
In
is
fact,
taken care of.
I
Yeah,
totally agree with
yeah.
you. So my sincere request to people, if they are powerful people who are listening to this, and this is an important thing, and you can see the benefit of two people who are
Yeah,
now
exactly.
faculty members in ISA Pune, would have not been able to do something
And
without the
exactly,
conventional.
and particularly the gender, no? I mean,
Yes.
see,
Yeah.
I remember very vividly when my elder sister was getting married, and this was April,
Mm.
month of April, and I was supposed to take admission in 12th standard. So I had to pay the fees. So the wedding was not happening at our place, it was happening at a relative's place. So I went there to get the money from my mother, and while I'm asking the money from my mother, my relatives are telling my mother, why are
Why
you
are you
giving
giving?
money to a girl? I mean, eventually she has to do the burtan and all the kitchen work,
Wow.
right? I mean, so just I mean, it my mother was different, that's a different story, but not everyone is fortunate to have such a supporting and understanding mother, no? And we are missing out, we are losing on, I mean, it's a loss for those children who have this social constraint, and on top of it the economic
economic.
and you it was just 200 rupees that I was asking at that
Hmm.
time for the entire semester. And even that for my aunt was like, why are you spending
Spending so.
200 rupees on girls education, and she's not going to earn it back and give it to you. So, maybe that was the mentality. So
Now, what do they think, Anisa? See, you are now, at probably you are towered in terms of stature, towered in terms of knowledge, and towered probably also in terms of humanity. How do they look at it?
so as I told you, they are proud,
Hmm.
but at the same time they would not want their
Their
daughters to do
daughters do
the
that.
same thing. It's like that. So at some point in time the same aunt came to me telling that if I can find jobs for their sons. Okay, so that was a very interesting
Yeah.
point. But
Maybe
again
you will get
having
a job for their sons, right? That's what
yeah,
they're
that's
saying.
what she asked me, if I can find job for their sons, exactly. And see, and it's not just my cousins, even the next generation I'm talking about. The Because as I told you, my elder sister, who is just 4 years elder to me, is already a grandmother. So now they have two generations, and even for that generation, they would not want them to be as educated, or to go for that much of higher study. And even my niece today, sometimes when she says that she will not get married, she will become like Anisa auntie or something like that, there is not much encouragement. Though they want them to study, but only good enough.
Only, yeah,
Yeah, jitna matlab, there is I mean, when it comes to a man or a woman, there is this gender does play a role
play a role.
even today.
Yes.
So that is unfortunate. And but it is also coming from a point of concern, because they do not know what will happen, and they just want a secure future for all their children. But having said that, even the education scene with men in our family is also
Also,
not good.
why is that, Anisa? If I may ask, what is the reason? See, this is probably the case across various different families.
Hmm.
As you correctly mentioned, need
Hmm.
not be constrained only to
Yes,
religion
yes,
or
yes,
community.
yes.
But why is this problem prevalent generally?
See, I think because if the woman in the family is not educated,
Mhm.
it's difficult to expect that they will inculcate the importance
In
of education for their children.
children. Mhm.
So that is one very I feel that is one very big role, that. And see, everyone is into business, and no one is paying attention to the education of the children. They are all into say, maybe you can what do you say, uh, what is the word for that?
For
No, just putting people in one single box.
in kind of constraining them,
No, no, no. Like
or box putting
no,
them
stereotype.
stereotyping,
Yeah. So you
that's the
can
word.
say Gujaratis, for example, are into money, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe if father has business, maybe the child is not so much under pressure to earn money, because they know that eventually this business is something that they are going to. That could be one reason, but I'm not saying every family has a
Yeah,
secured profession, and that is why they are not learning. It's also about the place,
place.
society where
Yeah.
they live, because not if their friends are not giving any. Fortunately for me, my father, from where we were living, he had this job in Sign Hospital,
Mm,
BMC,
mm.
that hospital, and we moved to the campus.
Oh,
So my neighbors were doctors,
nice.
nurse,
Nice.
medical students. They were all our friends and children of doctor. So I think that was a very
Very
important
important.
role in.
Absolutely.
Uh, so people you talk to on a day-to-day basis, it does influence how you think, and that importance of education. Because if everyone, suppose I lived in the community where all my cousins are living,
Mm.
they were always thinking about marriage, at least the
Mm,
girl. I mean,
mm.
and maybe I would also have
Have you gone that
influenced by that particular ideology about goals in my life and so on. So I think your surroundings does
surrounding? Yeah,
play.
your local influence
Exactly,
matter a
exactly,
lot.
your neighborhood. Yeah.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah, because I also totally agree with the point of the stereotyping, because if you look at also many people who probably come from, let's say, business oriented family, I've also seen a lot of kids doing very well in studies,
Yes.
some of them.
Yeah, they do.
And the other way around also,
True.
professors may have children who may be totally
Not
disinterested
interested. True, true,
in
true.
doing something.
True, true, true.
So I totally agree with the
True,
point that one
true.
should not stereotype either on
Mm, mm,
religion, either
mm,
on region or
mm,
anything.
mm.
But the aspect, as you clearly mentioned, that the local community matters a lot.
True.
Where you are really growing,
Where your upbringing and
upbringing,
people you are surrounded by,
surrounded by.
whom you are interacting on a day-to-day basis.
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful. Now that you've kind of finished your PhD,
Mm.
you already have a higher education degree, and you thinking about getting into academics, or were you thinking about what else to do? Again, the same thought process.
Same thought. See, every after PhD, every postdoc, the
Uh,
first postdoc I were to go to IMSC.
yeah,
I did not
at
apply
Chennai.
abroad for PhD or for postdoc precisely for the same reason, because I knew for a longish they may not allow, and uh, so I went to IMSC. Again, it was only one step at a time. Always, I did not know, and it was difficult to explain to them that why my education is not getting over. You,
Yeah, that is
मतलब
always a question you
if they ask me, if any relative ask me
get.
तुम कौन से क्लास में हो, तो they would not understand MSc, MPhil or PhD. They would ask me 12वीं 13वीं 15वीं 17वीं. So I had to count. Then after MSc is 17, then MPhil is maybe 18, 19, then PhD is 19 plus 5, 23. So I would tell them in that language.
Okay.
So, and even my family, they would not understand why now you're going, then next one. Are you settling down at one place? I mean, they wanted me to just be, because for postdoc, every year you are looking
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
different position. Of course, I never told them where I am going next, etc. It was all completely independent decisions, etc. But yeah, they did not understand why the education is never getting over. It's like even today when they see me reading, which they always see, they are like,
अभी भी
पूरा अभी भी पढ़ाई पूरा लाइफ पढ़ने का ही है क्या ऐसे मतलब.
इसीलिए प्रोफेसर बना है.
Exactly. So
That's
yeah,
wonderful,
yeah.
wonderful. So then you moved to Chennai. You lived in Chennai
Yes,
for a while.
I was at IMSC Chennai for 2 years,
Nice.
slightly more than 2 years. I was my postdoc host was Professor Keshavan from
Hmm.
there,
Yeah.
who also works in this eigenvalue
Yeah.
optimization problems. So yeah, I found good collaborators in Chennai. So
Very
Murli
nice.
Vemuri and Rajesh Mahadevan, also my long-term collaborator now.
Mhm.
I first met him over there. He was visiting IMSC. So yeah, that was very fruitful, my
Fruitful.
visit to
So
IMSC.
how was it living in Chennai compared to Mumbai?
Oh, I was missing Mumbai
Mumbai.
terribly. I was a fanatic fan of Mumbai.
Yeah.
I think I still am.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was terrible.
That is
Yeah.
that is a city you
Because
cannot take away from anybody, right?
exactly,
That's
exactly.
a lot
Because
of people.
Mumbai is so much full of
Yeah.
life, and Chennai was different than that. But eventually, I made friends, and I had an excellent social life
Mm.
at IMSC. So I have very fond memories of my
Yeah.
stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. And from Chennai, where do you move next?
I came back to TIFR Bombay for
Mm.
a postdoc. So because there was some medical emergency,
Mm.
my mother was not well. So the last postdoc that I did was at TIFR
Yeah.
Mumbai. So yeah,
And then Mumbai to Pune.
from Mumbai to Pune.
Tell us
That's
about the
correct.
transition. How did that happen?
Uh, See, Pune was a choice because it's not too close
Proximity.
to Bombay, no, not too far, not too close. So I can maintain that.
Yeah.
I can go anytime that I can
Mm.
go back to the family, and also there is some distance, so that because every time I went home, no, there was this identity crisis,
Mm.
and I could not get back to work immediately. I used to, because I it was like, where do I belong? Do I,
Yeah.
because these two are completely different worlds for me now. At least it doesn't happen so often, but during that time, because that was the like I had started staying away from my home, I mean, for just 3 years,
Mm.
because the first time I stepped out of the home, because my PhD I was commuting from home,
Mm. Mm.
and the postdoc was the very first time that I stepped out
Stepped
of
out
the
of.
home. So every time I go back, that influence used to come back, and I was like, inside me, I'm trying to figure out
Mm.
where do I actually belong.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah,
True.
so that transition was not, but I was happy to be in Pune because the place was good, the culture was very good, very inviting, and you have a lot of freedom over here,
Yeah.
academic freedom. And also some of the faculty members over here at that time, oh no, not at
Mm,
that time, right
mm,
now,
mm.
many of them I knew them from my student or
True.
postdoc life. So
Nice.
right now it's like my friends from my
Friends.
childhood, it looks like they are around me. But
Nice.
that time there were not so many people, so these
Nice.
people were not there. Yeah, so that was nice. I was very delighted because I did not expect I will get this job, and I was very very happy to get this job. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
It's a kind of a pleasure to have you as a colleague at ISA Pune.
You are being
Yeah.
kind.
So one of the other elements which is an important element which you have brought into your work is also that sense of culture, because
Mhm.
I know you also organize this kind of gathering of people in their cultural attire, which is something which
Yeah, yeah,
set
yeah,
the
yeah,
trend,
yes, yes.
where you generally encourage people to come in their
Right.
own cultural attire, and including faculty members, huh?
Yes.
It's not just only the students.
Yes.
How did that click? Was there anything which you already thought about that
So we
earlier?
used to have this in our college, traditional day,
There you
annual
go.
traditional day,
Yeah.
and it was, I had very fond memories of those days because whatever bonding that happened,
Mhm.
most of it is during these traditional
Nice.
days. So I wanted something similar to happen over here, and it did bring people together.
Yeah.
So I mean that is why, and I like to see more colors, more vibrant,
Yes.
surroundings around me. So yeah, I'm
Wonderful.
happy it's still going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
It's a cultural trend which is set
yes,
by you, which I think is a great thing for the
thank
institution.
you.
That's how one also puts the chapa
Right, right.
of yourself on the institution.
Mhm.
How is your experience being a independent faculty member? Because now you are in a position where you can also zoom out and see, because you
Yes.
can see students, young faculty members. It need not be just women. It can be anybody.
Hmm, hmm.
uh, how has your own background influenced in, let's say, mentoring people, talking to people, interacting with people who may actually have a problem? And I know a few of them probably would come and talk to you also. And what is the kind of interaction you've had over the years, Anisa?
So, I mean, honestly speaking, it's more than teaching them. I am learning from every person or
Yeah,
every
yeah,
collaborator or every student that I am meeting. And fortunately, touch with the students that we get in at ISER Pune, they are really, really
yeah,
good. I always learn. Uh, it's a generation of very
yeah.
smart kids and very like motivated,
Moder-
motivated students. So that is something. And from the questions that they ask, I mean, I learn so much from. I may not be able to answer them immediately. Sometimes I do, sometimes I can't. But that makes me like I'm always on my toes because of this challenging mentorship. So it has been an enriching experience, and even while talking to your colleagues,
mm,
because some
mm,
of them are very much into like they will just float around a question. For example, Chandrashil is one
mm.
such
Yeah,
colleague.
yeah.
He would float around a question for others to think about it and get back. So that is also very stimulating, no? Because you are always like thinking about some. It could be a very simple riddle or maybe a complex mathematical question or anything. So fortunately, I mean, again the surrounding that matters. And about students coming to me with their difficulties in pursuing higher studies for whatever reason, their whatever barrier, it could be economic, or like cultural,
Mm,
societal barrier, or difficulties in mathematics. i'm I won't claim I could solve all the problems, but I try to tell them based on my experience and based on experience of people around me, those who had similar experiences. I try to guide them, I try to solve the problem wherever it is possible,
mm, mm.
because financial problem is the easiest to
Easiest,
solve for
exactly.
us at this stage.
Mm,
But other problems are not so easy. I mean, they are
absolutely.
a bit complicated. And I tell them what would you expect me to do so that
Mm,
this. And particularly when I go and meet women, not just women, anybody, I just say that you have to stand for yourself,
mm,
because sometimes even for men there are some family pressures about certain things, that they should start earning
Yeah.
well very
Yeah.
soon,
Yeah.
and which it's they cannot pursue PhD
Mm.
because PhD is a
Yes.
long
Yes.
process,
Yeah.
and you don't get paid as much
As
as
much as,
their
yeah.
batchmates are earning. So, but see, eventually, whatever we do, it is them who has to stand, and all you can do is give them that strength
Strength.
and the
Absolutely.
encouragement, and tell them that you are there whenever they need to discuss and whenever they need, and whatever the best we can do, we will do. But having said that, I don't think we can solve each and every problem,
Absolutely.
and it's
Absolutely.
there are so many challenges that we cannot even, I mean it's like दुनिया में कितना गम है मेरा गम कितना कम है, it's like that.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
it's like there are
Uh,
situations where like beyond imagination, and it's heartbreaking, but you can only give them strength and
Strength.
support.
Absolutely. Now it's so very well put,
Hmm.
because as you correctly mentioned, you would not be able to, solve the whole problem.
Hmm.
You
Right.
might give a hint,
Exactly.
right? And as again you correctly mentioned, it is up to the person to take that particular
Exactly.
hint and
Exactly.
then take it
Hmm.
forward. So,
It's like you can take the horse to
or so,
the well, but you can't
exactly,
make that person drink, right?
precisely
So.
right, precisely right.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your research program currently, what
Hmm.
you're working on, what is the kind of questions you are interested in.
Okay. So, from where I left about
Hmm.
my
Yeah.
PhD problem, so that eigenvalue problem, this was about a fixed membrane problem. So there are many versions. So that was for the Laplacian operator, and it was in the flat Euclidean space.
Hmm.
But then we were interested in what happens if from a flat surface you are going to a curved surface.
Curves.
For example, you can think of hyperbolic space,
Hmm.
negative curvature, or SN, the sphere with positive constant curvature. And then from there, so these are like constant as it is constant curvature. Then from there we went into something called covariantly constant. That is from the point of view of the manifold, the curvature tensor is constant. So that they are called symmetric spaces. So we worked on symmetric spaces because of the mathematical challenge in dealing with these problems. Because once the geometry of the underlying space changes, how does the optimization problem change?
Change.
Right?
Okay.
Does the solution depend on the geometry? So these were some geometric. Then from linear operator we went on to non-linear operator to see what best we can do. And from fixed membrane we went to free fixed boundary membrane to
Hmm. Completely free membrane.
free boundary membrane. For example, Nyman eigenvalue
Hmm.
problem, Zaremba problem, Stecklow problem, mixed Nyman and mixed Dirichlet and
Hmm.
Stecklow.
Hmm.
So we just try to see, because the tools that we used in our earlier problems are no longer applicable to the new situation.
Situation.
So
Yeah.
it is like it's a challenge to come up with new tools
Hmm.
or make use of the existing
Existing
tools
tools.
if any that is available. So, and also there is this very long standing conjecture which I was interested in for a long time. I also had discussed this with some of my students, which recently got
Hmm.
settled. Unfortunately I could not solve it.
Hmm.
So, but there are still some versions of that problem still available. So stating it is very simple, that among all polygons
Yeah.
with fixed number of sides and fixed area, for which polygon will this lambda 1 or the principal
Principle.
frequency will be optimum. So this was it was proved for n equal to 3 and for triangles and for quadrilaterals. But for n larger than or equal to 5, it was not proven for a very, very long time, which is now proved. But there are still some versions of the same problem where it is still open.
Open.
And
Okay.
also similarly, the fundamental graph, that
Hmm.
lambda 2 minus lambda 1, which is the energy difference between the ground state and the
Excited.
excited state. So for which domains can we expect them to be like so the shape sensitivity essentially about of these problems.
But they're all constrained in 3 dimensions, or you also
And
think
n
n dimensions?
dimensions, n
That is the
dimensions, yeah.
that is the luxury what
Yes, yeah,
mathematicians
yeah,
have,
yeah.
right?
We have no constraint. We can expand ourselves. So yeah,
Excellent,
we can
excellent.
go beyond. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
So, which also means that you are training students. You are also, teaching, which you do
Yes.
regularly, and
Hmm. Hmm.
with very good kind of feedback. Also, I heard you were actually engaged with students, talk to them, not only inside the classroom but I've also seen so many of the students, consulting you outside the classroom and other places. So how has it been, the ecosystem here in terms of doing research and teaching? Have you kind of enjoyed doing these things, and what are the aspects which you like, which you don't like?
See, the classroom teaching, definitely, I mean,
Mm.
because there are always a bunch of students who are really motivated and
Motivating.
really smart, but also the challenge for us to just not focus on them,
Yeah,
but bring all of them
absolutely.
together.
Yeah.
Though there are students who are average and there are students who are really weak, so you have to plan your course in such a way that everyone benefits from it. No one should feel left out, that they should not feel that it is not meant for them. So that is the bigger challenge, and getting them into the discussion is the bigger challenge, which fortunately at ISER Pune it's not so much difficult,
Difficult.
because we have the instructor here has a lot of freedom
Freedom.
in,
Absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
in
I
in
agree with
designing and how we grade the exams, and whether there is they are not rigid about it has to be just mid sem and end sem and about the marks and grading. So we can get the students to the board, ask them to explain things in their own words, and if they are not so confident, we can ask them to make teams and
teams
present
and
something so that they learn from each other. So even encouraging the students to discuss with each other and coming up with assignments like that, where they are forced to interact
interact
with
with
each
them.
other and discuss with each other. And this reading projects for students is also where you can give one to one personal attention. It really helps, and that is one very good aspect of the students should really benefit from that, because they get personal attention and they can learn something of interest to them.
Interest.
It can be outside the regular curriculum. No, you can just choose something that you are interested in, and you can approach a faculty accordingly. And I have had, even through summer projects, winter projects, all these things. I mean, I have learned from them,
Yeah.
and it's really very. I mean, I'm happy that I could interact with
Interact with.
those
Yeah.
many students.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in that sense, the ecosystem, as you again mentioned, it's very nice to
Yes.
interact and
Yes.
do a lot of things.
Yes.
So before we move on to the final aspects, I would want to actually ask a couple of things. One is the literature aspect, which
Mm-hmm.
is something which you are also deeply interested in.
Yes.
uh, Partly maybe because of the influence from your own home, where I think a lot of writing happens at home.
Yes. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that, and I also want to kind of ask you about more about Indian women in mathematics at some point of
Sure.
time.
Sure.
But first, we'll take the question
About the
of the
literature.
literature aspect. Yeah.
So, though there were people in my family who were writing, but see, I was not aware that they are writing when I was
Mm.
growing up. I came to know about it much later, because my father is a kind of person, he would do many things, but he would not. And I think I am also like him, because I also do a lot of things without telling them. So, so I did not know that he writes. I did not know that my uncle writes. I mean, it is all even very recently that I found all this treasure of their writing.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I had no idea that they were writing, and they were writing so well. But my grandfather, what he wrote, I did not have the idea of the amount of things that he had written, but I knew that he was writing,
Mm.
because in my parents' wedding invitation card there was a couplet written by him. So that's how I knew that
Wow.
I knew that he writes. So, but there was no culture of discussing these things at home, or and even we were not a kind of family where we did a lot of outing.
No.
As I
Yeah.
told you, the
Yeah.
first time I went outside Bombay was for this net
Yeah.
exam, and even within Bombay, eating out
Uh,
or going for a picnic was never done in our family. So there was no this occasion of knowing
Knowing
what
what
their interests
interests
are.
are.
My father was just come from office, and then he will immediately go to the mosque and
Mm.
come late after all the namaz is over, and then next morning he will go to office again. So he was like mulle ki daud ghar se masjid tak, as they say it, and my mother also says it like that. So that was his routine. And when we were very scared of my, he was strict in the sense he never, there is some aura that a person carries, no, even him without being strict, you are not yourself
Yes,
when
sir.
that person is around. So when he used to come home, whatever we were doing, maybe we were singing, dancing, we would all sit in one corner as if we were like just sitting quietly, and things like that. So thing is, so I was not aware that they were writing, so maybe it was in the genes
Mm.
or something like that. So every time I listened to something interesting, I used to get very attracted towards
That's
it.
it.
Even during my school time, I mean, the Bal Bharti, the Gujarati poetry,
Mm.
Gadya and Padya,
Yeah, Gadya.
that,
Yeah.
I mean, it was so fascinating. It's not possible to not get interested in it. And even our Hindi teacher was very good. Our Gujarati teacher was very good. And our this Sahitya in
Mm.
Gujarati and Hindi is so vast and
Must,
so
yeah.
interesting. I mean, that
Yeah,
I
because there's
just fell in
also
love.
very nice kind of there's an interesting coherence
Hmm,
also,
hmm,
especially in the western part of India, because Marathi and Gujarati
hmm.
has cultural kind of interactions,
True,
because this
true,
historically
true,
goes
true,
back
true, true. Right,
Peshwas and
right, right,
Maharaj
right,
Baroda and
right, right.
there is also influence of Hindi, because
True.
western part is slightly different in that
Yes,
way, because
yes.
it has some influence from southern part,
Right,
Deccan,
right,
and also from the northern part,
right,
and
right.
of course the Marathas, and there's a very
Yes,
rich history there
yes.
too.
Yeah.
In that sense, you would probably be exposed to a lot of other kind of literature and also,
True,
right?
true. So my father made it a point that we learn how to read and write Urdu.
Nice,
So
nice.
that there was a teacher who used to come home and he used to teach us how to read and write Urdu.
So
So that's
how
how
many languages then you can read and write?
I can read Arabic, Urdu, Gujarati, Hindi, Marathi, English.
Six,
Yes.
or even more than that, maybe.
No, 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 just six.
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That is well. So Marathi you can speak, right? You
Yeah, I
can.
can speak, but not so fluent,
Yeah,
but I can manage it.
yeah, yeah. Oh, wonderful. That's amazing, Vanessa. Because anybody, there's a kind of joke. Anybody who knows three languages in Europe
Mm-hmm.
actually would get very big job in Europe.
Oh, I
Whereas
see.
in India,
Uh-huh.
at the local level, you see there are so many people
So
who
yeah, they know so many languages.
languages.
That's
Yeah,
true. So Arabic I can only read. I can't
I
understand or
understand.
write.
Hmm,
So,
hmm.
but I can only read it. So yeah,
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. So you also write?
I do, but I don't write well. So it's like it's very unpolished. So it's not even worth. But I read a lot. I
Yeah,
listen to a lot of shairi, and that is one way of improving your writing,
writing.
because the
Yes,
more you read, the more you listen. You,
absolutely.
and that's why I know that what I'm writing is not worth
No,
showing, because I know what is good writing.
good.
Because yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, writing is not only for public consumption, right?
yeah,
There
yeah.
is also
It's I do I try to, yeah.
very nice. Very
Mhm.
nice. I hope you will write more. It will be
I
nice.
yeah I also hope.
Yeah.
So I hope so too.
So we'll come to this aspect of Indian women in mathematics. Please
Mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit more about it,
Mm-hmm.
and give us some information. Listeners might be interested
Sure,
in knowing
sure,
more
sure.
about it.
Yeah. So this is like uh, it's a what do you say, it's a group of women, Indian women's mathematicians who like came together. This was I think the first meeting of this group happened in the year 2009. And with there was some gap immediately after that, but then from 2012 onwards these meetings are happening annually every year. And now it's a very initially it was not so very much organized, like there was just this initiative and this idea and so on, a small project, but it really became like a consistent annual project, I
Mhm.
think since the year 2012 or something. And we hold many activities. It is funded by National Board for Higher Mathematics,
Okay.
DAE. And we hold many meetings annually. There is an annual conference that happens every year at different parts of India. We keep changing the location. And then there is a visitors program where we invite, as I told you, role models are very
Hmm.
important. So we
Yes.
invite women mathematicians, not necessarily always women, because learning has no gender. You can learn from any gender.
Hmm.
So they go to remote places in India,
Hmm.
and three different places in India, and they visit the college or the university, and they give a lecture and interact with the students
Students.
over there. And we invite three such mathematicians every year. That's the visitors program part. Then there is a winter school which happens for 10 to 12 days
Hmm.
every year, where we invite applications from young women, like BSc, MSc students, and we train them in the foundation of mathematics. So the idea is to bring them together, and because not everyone is at par with
Par
each
with,
other,
yeah.
so just getting them to the same background in terms of the foundation of mathematics. So that happens. Then there is a regional workshop, which is like 1.5 days workshop, where we go to different regions, and so that people, the idea is not every family lets their children to
Yeah.
travel to
Yeah.
a remote place, so it's like something local, and we encourage the local people to apply, and our majority of the selected participants are from that region or around that
Around
region.
that.
So we also have this localized, and that venue also keeps on changing. So idea is to reach out to as many as you can. And there are mini courses which used to happen offline, in an offline mode earlier, but now we have moved
Online.
it to an online mode, because so that more and more participants, those who are, so we choose some topics and we invite experts in those topics. And
So there is a web page on this, right?
there is
Yeah.
a web
Yeah.
page, Indian
I'll
Women
link
in
I'll
Mathematics.
link
Yeah,
that in the show
sure,
notes.
sure. There is a web
So
page, and all the events, upcoming events, how to apply everything. And also it also leads to a link where the information about scholarships,
mm,
opportunities
mm,
for women in particular, and for anyone
right.
interested in mathematics or science in general. What are the, for example, for women who have break in their career for different
Yeah. Yeah.
reasons, what are the opportunities for them? So such information also one could find in order to apply for any grant or any scheme or any project. So yeah, so this IWM, this is doing very well.
Very, very good.
Yeah,
Very,
it is
very
doing well.
interesting and
Yeah.
important initiative.
Yes.
Yeah, because there is also
Hmm.
a lot of understanding nowadays. Because if you look at, even in physics, there is a lot of
Hmm.
discussion happening,
Hmm.
and there was also something called as Hyderabad Charter, where they
Hmm.
were looking at the women participation in physics, which was
Hmm.
reasonably low,
Hmm.
very low, in fact,
Okay.
about 18% or
Oh,
something.
I
I
see.
think in mathematics also the numbers are
Yes,
roughly
it's
about
yeah.
the same.
In mathematics, see, till MSc we see many women.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, 80% of the class you will see women, but
Yes,
they don't come to PhD.
PhD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
there
that
is
is a
this.
big constraint. You're right,
Right, right,
absolutely right. There's
right.
also a very nice book called Lab Hopping. You probably
Mm-hmm.
would have heard about it.
No, no.
It's slightly more on women in
Right.
science.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Yes, you're
a
right.
very
Uh-huh.
nice kind
Okay.
of exposition
Okay.
on the state of Indian women
Mm-hmm.
scientists
Mm-hmm.
and the constraints they
Mm-hmm.
actually come across.
Mm-hmm.
I've been referring to that book quite a few number of times in my
Mm-hmm.
podcast. I'll again
Mm-hmm.
link it.
Okay,
It
sure.
would be of interest to many. Yeah, it's been a wonderful conversation, Anisa.
Thank you.
The time is just fly just
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. Right.
And it's also very interesting. This is also part of Pratidwani Emergence series, as I was mentioning, which means that we will have you again on the Pratidwani after a while, so that we can actually
That
have a
I would
longer
like to.
discussion.
Mhm.
And there's a lot to learn. There's been remarkable knowledge what you have already shared with
You are
us.
being kind.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, because these things are very important. It's not only
Sure.
about the
Yeah. Yeah.
sciences and
Hmm.
mathematics, which is a central part of what we
Sure.
do. But there's a
Hmm.
human element.
Sure.
That is the reason why
Yeah,
humanizing
that
is
is
so.
why I try to speak more about such things,
Yeah,
because I know there are still people struggling with
yeah.
these barriers, and if they see it is possible to
Possible.
overcome them, I mean, it's just for that. It's not to like glorify my journey. It's
Exactly,
it's
exactly.
just so that others, because I started that way. I saw a woman mathematician who
Who
spoke
spoke?
about her struggle, which gave me the confidence that I can also do it like that. So
Fantastic, fantastic. More power to you.
thank you.
And I hope many more people, including men, get
Yes.
motivated listening to what you had to say. And irrespective of the kind of divisions what we have in society, I hope science and mathematics will elevate us
I hope
to
so.
become better human beings. So thank you again, Anisa. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for thinking me worthy of this
No,
conversation,
no,
and
it's my
I had a great time. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I'm happy.
yeah. It's Pratidwani, where we try to humanize science. In this case, humanize mathematics with Anisa.
Thank you.
Super.